everyone, to American Consumer Credit Counseling's Back to School Budgeting Top Tips for Families webinar. We're happy to have you with us here today, and we hope you're able to walk away from this webinar with lots of practical tips to get your child ready for elementary, middle school, high school, and off to college. So if you are not familiar with American Consumer Credit Counseling, we are a nonprofit agency, credit counseling agency, and our main mission really is to empower people with the knowledge and tools to be able to make good financial decisions. So this webinar series is part of our financial education outreach. If, however, you are looking for some more one-to-one assistance with your credit or with your debt, please feel free to reach out to our agency. Our credit counselors can give a free and confidential financial assessment and help you to really understand what's going on with your financial picture and if a debt management program is really the best for you. We also are certified as pre and post bankruptcy counselors, and we also take care of some housing counseling as well. So if you'd like to find out more about our organization, you can reach out to us at www.consumercredit.com, or you can call our community outreach line 866-464-5241, and you can speak directly with a credit counselor. And today I am very happy to introduce three of my colleagues here today who are going to help unpack some of those budgeting tips and tricks to get your family back to school. So Kyle?
Yeah. My name's Kyle Icino. I'm that dashing gentleman on the left. I have been with American Consumer Credit Counseling for almost 13 years. It'll be 13 years come Halloween. I've loved every minute of it, and I'm super stoked to be here today and to be here with you, Paul and Chloe. Paul?
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. I came just a little after Kyle there, probably about 7 years ago. I'm a counselor here at the group here and work with all the different departments. And I have the same feeling about Kyle does. I love working here. It's a nice place. We just help people all the time, and it's just a rewarding thing to do every day. How about you, Chloe?
I'm Chloe. I worked here this past summer as an intern in our marketing department and also luckily got to help out a bit with community outreach too, like these webinars. I've totally enjoyed my time here, and I'm so sad that this is the last event I help out with this summer.
Well, we're going to make it a good one. We are going to make it a good one. So, to go over today's agenda, we're just going to go over, the push and pulls of school shopping, how to budget for extra expenses, K through 12 school planning, which is predominantly what I'm here for because I have an 8-year-old. College-bound kids planning, which Chloe is more than a professional at. And then Paul, you've also had children in college. And then of course, how to set a savings plan. So let's get into it.
So, first off, the back to school season is coupled with the holiday season, which is two hits to the face financially. Um, I mean, like we say here, many people love the holidays, but it's hugely financially stressful. Um, you have back to school, and then you have Halloween, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. And by the time, you're reviewing your bank statement at the end of December, it's like, oh, okay, I spent a lot more than I was planning to, potentially. So what we're hoping to do with this webinar is give you some tips on how to have that not be the case and feel a little bit better with your finances as these next few months go on. Now, the push and pull of back to school shopping is, you try to buy less to stay within your budget. But you also buy more because the kids are happy and they want to fit in. So they want, this super cool thing that totally wasn't originally in the budget. According to a NerdWallet survey, shoppers will spend an average of $541 on school supplies and clothes And 43% of shoppers reported that they were going to use credit to cover the cost, which is, of course, not ideal. And so with this webinar, we're going to look into how you can accurately budget and what you really need for school, what you don't need, and what certain things are maybe okay to splurge a little bit more on versus holding back.
So let's talk about our budget here and some ways in which we can kind of cut expenses, reallocate money, think about that back to school shopping needs and things like that. Some of the things that come up when you're trying to be able to kind of understand a budget is that we really don't want to like guess about the budget. We want to kind of find a budget that we're happy with and that we can kind of use as a kind of a target point. Now, there are different ways you can apply it. You can use a pen and paper. A lot of people use a spreadsheet or even a spreadsheet like Excel, and then a budgeting application that we would have with Credit U would also be a good point. What you want to do is try to get a position where you have something down on paper so that you can kind of get a sense of what it is that you're looking for. Now, the other thing that it's important is we don't necessarily always know what the pricing is for all the stuff that we're kind of being looking for. One good way to kind of check that out, I've always found, is trying to do some comparison shopping online. So take your lists and go online and see what those things cost. Now, after you do that, you're going to have a good sense of what that budget is. And you're going to have a sense of also some comparable prices that you can use if you're going to a place where you say, oh, I see it's online at lower. Can you match the price? This gives you a good position where you're more empowered with your budget and you'll be able to understand the different parts of it as well. So we have some different categories that we always want to kind of really focus in on. The main one is the housing. Those are kind of fixed expenses. They don't change at all. The transportation is kind of flexible. It has certain changes, but the gas changes each week. The food obviously is a kind of a flexible budget too, because you have the groceries at the store, but then you also have groceries and takeout food, dining in. This is a good place where you can think about places you might be able to trim some things, because if the adults could do one less takeout at lunchtime, they'd have one $25 more for the kids to take something to school. So learning about that is kind of important. The medical needs are really important because they get you all the things that you're going to need, and we have to have that kind of as a base mark. Also, the communication, we always want to know what the plans are, how much we have on those different communication devices, which plan and which one might be the best plan also. And then the other expenses really is just those things that come up once in a while or things that you like to do, and that's the hobbies and childcare after school. And even the entertainment and the other living expenses is going to be another places that we can kind of look at as we're trying to figure out places where we can kind of trim our budget. Always want to make sure that we have important expenses isolated. That means that the fixed expenses have to be number one. You can't ever say that you can't pull from that. So that's like the rent, your car payment, and all that kind of stuff. The variable is kind of a little bit flexible, but you can't not eat and you can't not go to work. So you think about that in terms of, hey, could I take a little less, or maybe I could do two trips here and not one, or have some help, friends help out with some of the, shove for the kids off to different things. The back to school purchases, that really comes into this kind of unusual place where it's like, oh, it's just somehow it popped up out of nowhere. And it's good for us to kind of make sure we have that in the budget. And also other things that come up on that are just property taxes, insurance, car inspection. So having kind of a sense of that the fixed budget is a certain amount, we have a variable, which is a little, and then at the end, we have kind of periodic, but all three of those categories equals a real budget. You can't really take them out of sequence. You have to keep them right there. We always want to make sure that everything is covered at the beginning. So the basic needs we have to have set, and that's really making sure everyone has food and that they have proper transportation, the medicine, the child care, and all that kind of stuff. The debt payment is important because that really comes out every month. A lot of times it'll just pop out and you know what you have to owe, but it has to be a part of that budget because it's not going to be able to, move to another month. The savings is kind of a flexible. We want to try to pull in a savings account. And the reason for that is if we have 10% or even less of any kind of workable income, if we have an oopsie moment, then we have something that we can kind of use into pull into that. The other expenses really pulls into kind of what we're referencing today, which is trying to make sure that if we can pull some of the other things into a different position, we might have expenses to do eating out, subscriptions, or even some other donations and personal care as well. This is really important, and I talk a lot of times with the clients that I work with here. We want to try to realize that as you're talking through your budget, food is also considered takeout food, which is now considered entertainment. And if you have a sense of that, if you eat out and have a cup of coffee and you have that once or twice a week, well, that's actually 3 or 4 meals at a home. And if you're trying to be able to get allocating money, the first place is for adults to just say, you know what, my kids are more important than me. Let me see what I can get out of my budget so that I can put more for them. If we eat smarter, we're going to be able to do better at the grocery store buying in bulk. The looking for the entertainment is really trying to find your best opportunities there. I know my wife is always on the phone trying to get the best plan from these providers saying, oh, do you have a new plan? And they'll reset it up. So you can kind of get that. The transportation is really grouping and also trying to help with others who can help you. You have to go to school 3 times a week, but your buddy does too. Let's try to get some transportation going together. And the utilities is really kind of if we can just turn everything off at the end of the night. If you would be amazed how much you unplug the thing at the end of the night. Every night, everything's unplugged. The electric sucks out even if it's plugged in, period. And so pulling it down is going to be able to do that. If we're able to move and cut back, that gives us some flexibility. Now, having flexibility means that we're able to spend a little more money onto things like the back to school right there in September. Halloween, if they really need that. And then the Thanksgiving is a big one because that's where the families get together. And then, of course, December, all the money goes out because it's where everyone buys all their gifts. So it's just, we can tighten it up at the beginning here. We're going to be able to pull out some of those extra funds to be able to have something extra there. And also it's going to be less stressful as you're looking at it if you think about pulling your funds out to allocate to others.
Thanks, Paul. Really good,
You're welcome.
really good points there.
Thank
So
you.
now let's change gears a little bit and talk about K through 12 learners, planning ahead and breaking it down. All right. So this is my kind of wheelhouse here because my son starts school this coming Wednesday. So you always want to buy things that your kid needs and that is a requirement for the class. Now, my school system in Auburn, Massachusetts, the last day of school, we got a letter that says this is what they need, which is great because we can start planning during the summertime. And my brother, bless him, with his kids, he's the kind of go above and beyond. And I'm like, I don't think your kid needs any of these. So I would always try to stick to the school supply list and don't go crazy because what I would do is maybe kind of wait to see, all right, the teacher asked for color pencils, but how often are they going to use color pencils? I know last year it was glue sticks. I feel like I had to buy glue sticks like it was my job because it was just that teacher liked to cut things out and put them in a workbook. Um, and then obviously, communicate with other parents for support and ideas. Um, Less is more and more is less. I love that saying. So, see what's on sale, potentially buy things in bulk, or you can, split the cost with other parents, things of that nature. If you live in a small town, some of your kids might grow up going to the same class with other kids, so you make friends with those parents, and you might say like, oh, I saw a really good sale at so and so. I got all these extra markers. Does your kid need those? Yeah, they do. Oh, hey, I got these extra things. Does your kid need this? Yes, and do kind of like a little parent swap thing. Um, Shop at the dollar store. I'm not ashamed of that. I mean, it's cheap, and it's at the same time a third grader doesn't need like high end like Gucci colored pencils and markers. And then of course you always want to look online at stores for special discounts. All right. Now, something that we recently did before we actually started doing our back to school shopping for our son was we looked around the house to see if there was any supplies that you already have. I mentioned a few minutes ago how you always just want to get what's on the supplier list and then kind of maybe gauge what does that teacher have them use. And I joked about the color pencils. They used them maybe once. His teacher last year was very crayon marker kind of teacher. So maybe two colors in his coloring pencil box were used. So we're like, check, don't need to get color pencils this year. And then, I love the idea of creating a supply closet to use throughout the year. That way, and what we do as a fun little side thing, depending on how old your kid is, we kind of set ours up in my son's room as like a little mini shop. And we give him like Monopoly money. So if he needs certain things, then he would have to buy them. And it kind of teaches kids about money, and it also helps as a parent to get them to do some chores around the house. All right. And like I said, see if friends or online stores have items from the list to borrow or buy. There might be items that are very expensive, but only used for 1 year. And I know most of us, know when we get to the high school days of getting those also so cheap scientific calculators, which are ridiculously high in price. And then, of course, look for items at thrift stores that are generally used. Know what items like hoodies, lunch boxes, and water bottles that tend to get lost easily. My wife is a big proponent of labels. And again, when we have a third grader with water bottles and things of that nature, a tip that I would like to give any parent listening that has a child in that age, put their name on the hoodie. Get a label, a label maker, or even just labels that you can write on with a Sharpie. Put their name on their water bottles. I can't tell you how many times I pick my son up from after school, and there's a giant table when you first walk in of lost and found, and there's just a sea of hoodies, water bottles, you name it. And if my son, God forbid, ever were to leave his water bottle, the next day the teacher would be like, "Hey, Goofy, you left this here," because it's got his name on it. So I would definitely, get those labels because it's cheaper to buy labels and put them on things than to have your kid constantly lose things that you have to then replace.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I remember when I was in elementary school, I would forget what was mine. Like it would be in a lost and found, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I don't think any of that's mine." And then like my mom would show up and she'd go, "This is your water bottle. Don't you remember?" I'd go, "Oh, right." So if you think you can just remember, that might not be the case.
I think it's
Chloe,
less stressful too for the kids when they have it that way. It's not a topic of a problem.
I agree with both you guys 110%, especially Chloe, especially nowadays, I feel like a lot of kids are into the same thing and each store carries the same item. So when I made the joke about seeing a sea of water bottles on the table, with my son's age group, it's like Minecraft, Pokemon, dinosaurs. And there was probably like five of the same Minecraft water bottles. So not only is it a good idea to put your child's name on it so they don't lose it, but we all joke that elementary schools are kind of breeding grounds for the cold and other things. It's kind of good for your kid not to be drinking from somewhere else where you don't know where that other child's been. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So of course, you can always look into assistance, low cost items like there's free backpack programs. You can contact your school to see if there's a free backpack program in place. Another amazing, amazing, I can't stress enough, amazing service that the United Way does is 211. We all know about 911, which is for emergencies, but 211 is if you need any type of local assistance programs. It can be used for anything from backpacks, childcare, transportation, mental health. So if you really do need it, I strongly suggest reaching out to 211 or their website, 211.org. There's another great service called Everyone On, which are low cost computers and internet plans. Um, Free and low cost items online. You can always find things on Facebook, Craigslist, FreeCycle, Buy Nothing. So definitely worth checking out those sites. Alrighty. So like I mentioned earlier, with after school starts, that's when you can kind of look to see what kind of supplies you may need depending on the teacher. And of course, like any time of year, like I said, my son starts school on Wednesday. Within 2 weeks, they'll be back, 50 to 70% off of the school supplies because they need to make room for Halloween. I mean, my local Walmart has already Halloween set up, and there's a little corner in the back that's Christmas. And I'm like, guys, pump the brakes. It's not even September. Let's not go there. Um, you want to buy on sale for later in the school year or potentially next year. If you have in your area, like a BJ's, a Sam's Club, one of those big stores, and if you can budget it, sometimes it's good to, like I mentioned last year with the glue sticks, to buy those in bulk because, not only will that help them through this school year, but they're going to ask for it next year as well. Definitely you want to ration the school supplies. So on the first day of school, if you do buy in bulk and you're like, oh, I got this great deal, I got 4 boxes of crayons. Don't send your kid to school with 4 boxes of crayons and everything else on the first day because you're gonna kill their back, but then they don't need it or they'll lose it. Um, and a great quote that I love is, owning less is better than organizing more. I think that is brilliant.
Absolutely. And if they don't use it, they might give it away. I remember kids in elementary school having cool things and then they would just give them away. And in hindsight, it's like, ooh, someone bought all of that.
Yep.
But they're
I
just,
was going to mention that same thing too. If they have extra, they're like, "Oh, you want it? Here, I got plenty."
Yep. And if you are financially in the means to have extra that you would like to donate to the classroom for maybe kids or families that don't have that, usually what I would do is, put it in a separate bag. Put what you want in your kid's backpack and then give them a little bag, or even drop it off yourself at the front office and say, "Hey, I would like to donate these for, Mr. or Mrs. So and so's class." All right. So of course, needed supplies for anybody K through 12 is a backpack, which, if you can go multiple years with a backpack, great. But let's face it, with my third grader, he comes home, he's throwing that backpack down, even though I have a little hook for him to hang it on. He doesn't use it. Pencil cases are important, lunch boxes, and of course, water bottles. Definitely want to make sure you get the good water bottles. Um, the basics that they usually get and things that you can buy in bulk, pocket folders, loose leaf paper, printer paper, pencils, a pencil sharpener, erasers, rulers, highlighters, and sticky notes. And then things that are good to have, which, sometimes the teachers are asking for some of these so that, you can help with the cost of the classroom, are washable markers. So, any type of cleaning products like disinfectant wipes, paper towels. But then, it's always good to have glue sticks, scissors that definitely, kid friendly, staplers, which I don't know. Sadly, I see kids not using staplers as much. I remember when I was going back, when I was in school, not only do we have to have staplers, but a stapler remover. And I tell my kid, like, stapler remover. He's like, what is that? And I'm like, oh man, I'm old.
yeah, I used to get cute little mini staplers and people would like compare, where'd you get that one? No, no.
Right. Alrighty. And then a big thing when it comes to back to school is clothing. You can always wait until, get them a couple new things. And then when, school starts is usually, 57% off sales. don't buy too many items because your kids will grow, especially again where the age my son is. He's definitely always constantly going through growth spurts. Department stores also donate unused items to Savers and other thrift stores. We're lucky enough to have a Savers pretty close. I like to use it all the time, and that sentiment is true. And sometimes Savers is won't even go that far to hide it. You can go to like, oh, my kid needs jeans. There'll be the jeans for Levi's and other, makers right there on it. Savers just threw their tag on it. So you might be able to find, if you were to go to Kohl's or these other stores that want 30, 40, $50 for a pair of jeans and get it for $10 at Savers. So don't feel bad if you have to go to Savers. It's a wealth of saving money, those stores. Of course, and as the weather starts to change, people start emptying their closets and donating items. I mean, if you clean your closet and you find good quality clothes, consider you can sell those. Or, going to certain stores to get coupons. There's, clothing stores like ThredUp, Poshmark, and Trendy that you can go to if you have those extra clothes. All right. And of course, when a new year, everyone types to think like, oh, my child's going into X grade. Now I got to completely get them a new wardrobe. You don't always need to get new clothes when the school year starts. I mean, I know it's always a mentality, especially when the kids are older, but when they're younger, I don't think they remember. I just think they're like, hey, you got a dinosaur on your t-shirt. That's pretty cool. Um, I always go with if it still fits, wear it. If it doesn't fit, hand it down. I'm sure Chloe and Paul, we all have clothing that we can go to our closet and be like, I've had that for 8 years. It still looks good. It still fits. I'm still wearing it. But it's always good too to sometimes clean out the dresser and closet before school starts for anything that might be small. And of course, you can try selling those items, or obviously, of course, always good to donate clothes, then throw them in the trash. Um, and of course, sort with your kids, emphasize giving clothes to others who can use them. Parents of older students, believe it or not, your kid might be interested in your clothes. And Chloe, I think you used to raid your mom's closet from time to time.
Yeah, half my work clothes this summer were my mom's.
Awesome, awesome. All right. And of course, I always find it crucially important teaching your kids about budgeting. You want to bring your child into the shopping for the three key items I consider are the backpack, the shoes, and the pencil case. And I would even say with shoes, I wouldn't go too overboard with them, though. Like for example, my son saw these pair of shoes, they're a little bit on the designer side, so they were high price. And I had to, I just sat down and explained to him and be like, these are cool, but let's try to look for something else because let's face it, you're going to wear these shoes for a few months and then your feet are going to get too big. And then he's like, yeah, because I'm growing. And I'm like, exactly. So having them in that conversation of like, should we get this? But hey, look at how much this is. If we get this, we could also get these other things as well. And it'll be cheaper. And I even think even beyond back to school shopping, your kids should just be involved with the budget and things of that nature. Because I think if by doing that, they're more they're more relevant to the situation and they can understand, which is always great.
Yeah,
Because I
I just
feel that schools don't teach budgeting when they should nowadays.
Yeah, I kind of want to jump in there with just a quick tip as well. My kids know a lot more about the computer than I do, and they love looking up numbers. So make them look up the numbers for all the comparisons. They can figure out themselves that all these things cost money. And it's a good task for them so that they can kind of learn about it. That if having them look up numbers online gets them kind of involved as well, learning about that budget. Just wanted to kind of add that in. And they love doing it. Parents don't want to do that. The kids do. So get me all the prices. We'll see what we can get. Find me the lowest ones.
Exactly. And my kid, he's a whiz when it comes to math. And I joke, I'm like, when you get older, you're going to end up doing my taxes. So some parents they like to set limits. You go to a store like, hey, let's. And to him, he treats it like a fun game. I'm like, hey, we're gonna get some school supplies today. Let's try not to spend more than X amount of dollars today. And he'll get things and be like, okay, Daddy, this was 199, okay. And he doesn't get taxes yet, so he just rounds up. He's like, okay, so that's $2, and then we'll put a couple things in the credit. And it's like, okay. And sometimes I'll test him and I'll put a couple of things in there, and he'll be like, Daddy, we're getting close. We're getting close. We should think about it. So I think that, again, just keeping your children in the fold of, the back to school shopping, how much things cost, really puts things into perspective. But then I would again take it on a higher level and just have them be aware of the budget, especially if you're in a rough patch or if God forbid somebody loses their job, things of that nature. It's always important to keep the kids in the loop.
And so now it's time for the part that I'm here for. For your college-bound kids, plan ahead and break it down. My credentials are that I'm in college and I am currently in my dorm room that I moved into about 2 days ago. So, as we go. So, one thing to think about when moving into a dorm room is what to buy new versus what not to buy new. Good bedding is important, very important. For example, mattress toppers, like the difference in a bed with a mattress topper and without is very different. I have laid on a bed with and without, and it makes a huge difference. And laundry basket, bathroom caddy, these things that you're going to use very often and that are necessary for everyday life. But they're not buying their first home. So I would recommend to try to stick with the basics and add on later. You don't need decorative pillows. They're just going to end up on the floor when you kick them off your bed to go to sleep. And in especially a freshman dorm, which is typically tiny and box-like, it's just going to clutter up the floor. So I tend to stay towards lighting and photos on the walls to personalize, a tapestry maybe. That can give it more of a homey feeling without cluttering up the room too much. And planning ahead can also be super important. When your kid's going into their senior year and applying for colleges, you know that that college dorm room is on the horizon. So starting, for example, a hope chest where you can put things that your child might want if you see it on sale. If you know that they're going to need a new comforter for the next year and you see a really good one on sale, maybe you buy that and you can store it in the hope chest. Also, when you're moving into your dorm, just be aware of the space. See if you can get a video or if your college has videos of them online. A lot of colleges I know have a list online of stuff that's already in the dorms versus not. And making sure you're aware on that means that you're not going to buy anything that you don't actually need. Storage is going to be an issue, but there's some storage that they'll provide. So knowing what storage they provide and how much more you might need is super critical to making your dorm room work the best it can for you. So next up, I want to talk about food options. A mini fridge. Everyone talks about it. I would recommend seeing if you're really going to use it. You know, is your kid someone that likes, yogurt or cereal and milk every morning and will really go into that fridge and use it? Or are they the kind of person that just wants to go to the dining hall every day? And you might not know, but sometimes waiting, if you really don't know and are thinking maybe you won't use it, can be the better option because you can buy a fridge anytime, but buying one and then not using it could be a huge waste of money. But another option is sharing. You and your roommate are both going to need a mini fridge. Do you need a full personal mini fridge to yourself? Perhaps not. And so if you split that cost, that can be a really good way to have a fridge in the room without it being as big of a financial burden. And another thing people think about with food are microwaves and other kitchen items. And the first thing I'll say is that some universities do not allow them. Microwaves and hot plates can go against fire codes, and universities will publish on their website, on that page I was talking about earlier that tells you what's in your dorm. They'll say that those aren't allowed in the dorm. So absolutely, absolutely check before purchasing. And if your college doesn't allow you to have it in the dorm, there might be a kitchen in your dorm, like a communal kitchen that might have a microwave, and so then that can solve that problem. Also, snacks. In my opinion, non-perishable snacks are a must. I'm always feeling snacky in the middle of the night if I'm staying up to study for a test or something. But non-perishable is what I would emphasize because, you know, if I get something that's going to go bad, I might forget about it for a few days and then it's bad and then I can't eat it anymore. Whereas if I'm getting, granola bars or Cheez-Its or like a trail mix, that I know can keep in my dorm the entire year. And so if I'm feeling it in September and then I have too much of it and I don't want to add October, but I still have some left, a few months down the line, I can finish that batch of what I have. And it doesn't rely on a specific time frame to be eaten. And you can get healthy and high protein snacks that are non-perishable, granola bars with nuts in them, trail mix, like I mentioned. And so putting an emphasis on that can also be super helpful for student athletes who might need an extra snack, perhaps once meal halls are closed, because they do close typically by, 7 to 10, depending on your school. So that's definitely something to prepare for. Maybe buy snacks in bulk if you can go to, a Costco. If you have a membership or a friend has a membership that they'd be willing to let you use, that can be a really great way to stock up for the school year. Now, some overlooked items, textbooks. So my recommendation is not to buy them straight out. Colleges will give you a list from the professors of the textbooks that you need, but what a lot of students typically find is that once you get to class, the professor might, for example, not use the textbook or they might provide it themselves. I've had that happen in PDF format. But even still, buying from the campus store straight out is not always the best solution because a lot of these textbooks have been out for years and years. So sometimes you can find it in a free PDF format online or on a site like Thrift Books where people are reselling used books. Um, and you can get them for way cheaper than the $100 textbook that they're selling in the college store. Because, if you have 5 classes and you have a $100 textbook each class, that's going to be $500. And that's quite a lot of money. And even if you, also just a tip, even if you don't find it on Thrift Books, a lot of bookstores rent. So you can rent the textbook for a set amount of time this semester and for less money. And then you can return it and not have to worry about reselling it yourself. Subscriptions, it's just good to know what subscriptions and apps are on your kids' phones. Going into college, you might get this because you want to watch one movie or that, and because, a lot is going on and kids maybe don't have as much financial education, they're going to forget about that subscription and it's going to be continuously charging them. So I think it's good to have a conversation before and during college about app budget, expected use. My mom sat me down and said, okay, these things cost money, buy them if you want to, but like it's good to check. And when I'm home for the summer, she'll sit me down and go, okay, what subscriptions do we have? And a couple times I've been like, oh, I forgot I even bought that. Like I didn't even see that charge coming through. Um, so that's always good. And also looking for student discounts. I know DoorDash has a student pass now. Spotify Premium has a student version. You can work with your school sometimes. Like my school, you can get New York Times for free. So you don't have to be paying for your New York Times subscription for the duration of your college career. So that's always good. And then another thing to think about is healthcare. If students are traveling out of state, colleges will require that they buy healthcare from that state because of how these things work. And that is going to be a large cost, typically a couple $1,000 sometimes. I've seen it can be quite a bit of money depending on what. A lot of times, if you are going out of state, the college will have a particular healthcare plan that they want you to use. So absolutely be thinking of that when you're budgeting for college and knowing that that's a required cost. But if you live in state, make sure that you're not just kind of mindlessly paying tuition and not seeing that healthcare is on there, because if you do live in state, you can waive the healthcare. cost because you already have healthcare from that state. And yeah. Now, one thing to think about is credit cards. When you're going into college, you're now at the age that you can get a credit card, and credit card companies can start sending you emails and texts and physical mail asking you to buy their credit card. And a lot of students might not know what they're doing. So, first off, sit down your college student and make sure they know what a credit card is, how it works, that you're borrowing money, but you have to pay it back, and paying on time versus if you pay late, how interest builds and late payments work, is really important. So that way they're not kind of buying a credit card with no plan. One option so that way they don't have to go straight into getting their own credit card is get a credit card with you, getting an authorized user credit card. I did that with my mom going into college. So that way, you know, I could experiment with using a credit card, but like my parent would control the payment. And so it didn't ever damage my credit. If I didn't pay um, a credit card bill, like that's not going to permanently damage my credit. Whereas if I had gotten my own credit card potentially and I didn't pay, then that's going to damage my credit for the rest of my life, or at least for the next, some amount of years. And then building credit, consider using, the store's credit card in getting promotional financing. But if you're going to do that, be sure to be aware of that the interest rate will jump at the end, and make sure that your student's not seeing that and going, oh, I can get this and get so many benefits, and then not paying it back and then getting absolutely slammed with that interest rate because they don't know about this in advance. And also student credit cards. Students can sign up for a credit card at university for a student card, which can be a good way to build credit, but it can easily be misused. And so, like I said, have a conversation with your child. One option is freezing their credit, so putting a freeze on your credit so it can't be changed too much by misusing financial money and whatnot in college when you're, out having a good time and all of your friends are buying that thing and, oh, you want it, you'll just use your credit card. No, none of that. Absolutely none of that, because that's what sets you up for having a really hard time in a few years. I've known a couple people that have had that experience and then gotten absolutely slammed with reality and gone, oh, racking up $2,000 on my credit card is never a good idea. And I really think the only reason I'm saved from that is because my mother had sat me down and said, this is what happens there. And I said, oh, okay, good to know, good to know.
As a counselor, just wanted to add in there, Chloe, that anyone can go online and check to see if their credit report has been compromised. So
Yes.
just take the extra effort to take a look. I took a look recently, and I've got a Paul M. They know who I am with two different names and different social security. So check it. If it's been compromised, that would be the one to kind of think about the freeze. But you can
Absolutely.
easily check it right online. It's with the service, with the government service.
Yeah. And you can even find more guides about talking to your kids about money and credit and checking your credit on ACCC's website. I know we have a lot of blog posts that go into that in more detail than we're doing right now. That can be referred back to. So just wanted to put that in there too. Another thing to think about financially for your incoming college student is checking and savings accounts. In most states, you can open a joint checker savings account with your children at 14, which are often called student accounts. And then with a joint checking or savings, you can transfer money from the parent's account to your child's account, which is, one way to give them somewhat of an allowance. But you can also see how fast that money is disappearing from their account. And potentially, if you need to have a talk with them about, how much money they're spending on the day to day. Students can have a debit card and use online banking. I'd use Capital One, I think. And I do actually regularly check my bank account. I know I just said I think after saying what creditor I'm using, but I promise, guys. At 18, students can open their own personal accounts, and one option can be to have them have their own personal checking account and a joint savings account, for example, which give them some privacy and independence, but make sure that you're watching their savings, making sure that they don't use all of their savings and that those are in a safe spot for later when they need it. Because it's super, like I was saying earlier, super easy to spend money as a college student. Your friends want to go out to eat, your friends are buying this thing. If your college is near a city and they want to go into the city, that's all money that you're spending, you know what I mean? A lot of activities. And so making sure to just be cautious with what access your kid has to their money. Maybe they're super responsible and they can reliably save and budget, but that might not necessarily be every student, especially because college is a very unique experience and you want to participate in so much. These conversations can be really helpful. You know, bring your child into the process, see what option would work best for them. If they want more independence, they think they can handle that. If they don't think they can handle that, that's something that can come out in a conversation with them. Um,
Alrighty. Those are all amazing points. So of course, let's talk about setting a plan before shopping. So we mentioned earlier, you want to budget for September, but you want to keep an eye towards the holidays. So as we all mentioned, this is the time of year where it's just going to be boom, 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 boom. Back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and holidays. Um, so you want to get them ready for the school supplies and school clothes now. But when budgeting, you don't want to forget any other school related expenses. Like like for my wife and I, it's because, most of us parents working nowadays, especially with the way the economy is, there's before and after school care, which to us that's the big thing because that's a couple $100. And then of course, if you have kids even younger that are in preschool, that's almost a mortgage payment. Um, does the kids do any type of activity or sports? My son does karate, so that's something that we have to factor into our budget. And then, there's the spirit days, the field trips, so I know some schools will do the whole like, oh, it's going to be so and so's birthday, or what my school usually does is they do, hey, this month it's your son's birthday, this and this and this, bring a little, dessert so that we can have like a birthday celebration type thing. But then always again keeping that eye on what's on the horizon. But budgeting smart for it. Halloween. Are your kids old enough where they still care about Halloween? Do they not care about it? Do you really need to buy the big bag of candy and things of that nature? Or do you get no traffic and things like that? Thanksgiving, do you host or do you not host? And then, of course, the big one being the December holidays like Christmas and Hanukkah and others, because yeah. But again, that's why bringing the kids into the fold of the budget's important so they don't realistically go, hey, here's my list for Santa, and it's a mile long.
Absolutely. And also just to mention with the school spirit days, if you have any parents, if you know any parents of older kids in school, especially if you're new into this, like especially elementary school, absolutely check with them. For example, on the 100th day of school, we would do a 100 things day, planning the night before and trying to find 100 things to glue to your child somehow. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yes, it is. My son did that last year, and he wanted to put 100 Pokemon cards on them, and I'm like, you won't be able to move. You'll be like a walking cardboard thing. We tried it, and he made it work, and then he comes home, half of them have fallen off. I'm like, what happened? He goes, I couldn't move, Dad. I'm like, told you. But I agree. I agree. Luckily, besides that, our school's pretty easy. When it's like Spirit Week, it's usually like school's color is blue. Wear something blue and wear a superhero outfit. But you're right, Chloe. There's going to be those other events where they're like, have your kid do XYZ, and we're like, all right, let's tackle this now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Um, so of course, when it comes to K through 12 manageable planning, again, sit down with the school supply list, look at the closet to see what they need, or if they have little drawers and things of that nature. Check off what supplies you have right now. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you have those supplies. Like for us, there was the color pencils that the kid barely used, so they're right back in his book bag this year. There's no need to buy new ones. Um, Check off what supplies we can get for free. Again, when you're living in a small town and your kids are growing up together, you're making friends with other parents, or we joke around because between my sister-in-law, my brother, and some friends of ours, we have everyone going from age 10 to 3 covered. So there's a 10-year-old down to a 3-year-old. So if we need, so we have that little group that's like, okay, we need this. We're bound to find it, especially when it comes to hand-me-downs. And then, of course, when you sit down with your child, decide on your shopping plan. Which stores do we want to hit? And then do we want to go with friends? Do we want to go solo or with the kids? Again, I usually find, because I know a lot of times if your kid's like, where are you going? It's like, I'm going to go to the store. Oh, that's boring. Nah, bring them on board. Because like Chloe said, it's important for them to learn now. And again, when we teach with my son, giving him play money so that he can learn, it's already at 8 years old, he's starting to realize like, oh, maybe I should save my money, because if I blow it all now and then I want something in a week from now, I got nothing, and then I can't get that cool thing.
And to review college bound planning, start early. It's gonna run right up on you, and then you're gonna go, oh, I have so many things to buy in the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Look around the house for items that can be used. If you have old towels and you're looking to buy a new set, you can say, hey, you can have these towels of ours for free, and then you get to get a new set. Very exciting and fun. Set a budget for college dorm purchases, prioritizing the basics. Discount hunt. Lots of places have student discounts. Tons of stores have back to school sales. Sometimes you can use your student ID card to get student discounts too, so look into that. Make sure to know how much space is available in your dorm room. Start with less and build up, and don't buy too many electronics. And, only buying what you need, what your school allows you to have. That will really help making sure that you don't overspend money on items you're never going to use. And think about student finances, bank accounts, credit cards. Have that conversation with your child. Make sure they know what it is. More students than you would expect I have met that, just barely know the difference between a debit and a credit card. And that's kind of essential information for when you're independent, living on your own for the first time. And know what subscriptions are on their phones, know what kind of purchases they're making. Make sure they understand how fast money can go downhill. $5, $10 purchases a day is a $50 purchase. It might feel less serious than spending $50 on something, but it has the same effect on your money over time. Help them learn how to build habits and budget, and make sure they're, checking their bank account, seeing how much money they have. And that's really what's going to set you up financially for college. Even, for college dorm purchases, setting a budget with your student and saying, okay, if we're going to spend this much money, what are you going to buy? Saying focus on what you need, and that can even help get them in the mindset for college.
So the next thing we want to kind of talk about is kind of taking some action here. The main thing that I kind of would focus in on is don't panic, because a lot of this information we've kind of reviewed. We kind of know from our notes what we have from the list from the teachers. We could look that information up. We could find a little mini budget there. We could have the kids kind of get involved with learning that as well. when they're involved, then they're much more engaged on letting you know what they like and what they don't like. I think it's always good. I always say do a little homework first before you head out. The reason for that is that you might go to a store and you might have learned online that that particular item was matched at a different store at $20 less. And all you have to do is talk to them and say, hey, do you guys match your pricing? I found this over at Target for less. And like, definitely, we definitely match with Target. So if you do a little homework, when you get out into the actual process, it's more of a routine. It's more of like, oh, I'm just going through things that I have familiarity with. It's not like I've got to reinvent the wheel as I'm going out there. That's really important. And what we've talked about here, and I want to thank Kyle and Chloe, they explained it so well, having the discussion with the kids as well as the ones who are the owners, the other parents, the teachers, you, your partner, that really helps everyone keep an eye on things. First of all, it keeps eyes on the sales. One eye, and now you have 10 eyes. You might ask another parent what they use as their planner, and they're like, oh, I got this thing here. It works perfect. And then all of a sudden you realize that might work for you. Deciding the realistic budget is really important, but that's really going to help you when you kind of look online, find out what that budget is. You're going to head out and you're going to say, online, it says it's going to cost me $87. Let's see if I can get it for less or whatever it is. Instead of going out there kind of knowing, not knowing, we're going out with their empowered position where we can actually take control of the process. And remember, you're in the driver's seat. If you don't want to do it, just explain to them that it's important that everyone is working together to get to the long-term goal. And I really think that that's something kids really can understand, is that when you empower them and have them a part of it, then they actually want to help you manage it. They'll help you and they'll say, no, I don't need that, Dad. Let's let that till next year or something of that nature. So I find that if we can keep it in a non-panic mode, and keep it in a more of an organized, let's roll on this together, we're going to be able to get through it. And you'll realize that it's not as difficult as we initially thought because we've already planned it and we've talked about it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul and Chloe and Kyle. Thank you so much again. As Paul had said, there's so many great insights, so many great examples. Back to school can really be overwhelming for so many families as to what to do. And as we'd said, like sometimes we panic and we think we all have to get it done in one day or just a couple days. But all of the steps that you kind of unpacked for us today can really go for back to school planning, but any kind of big purchase that you're doing. So the insights are fantastic. I want to wrap up our webinar today and thank all of the panelists that we had today for their time and their expertise. And I just want to kind of do a last little piece because, again, our organization, American Consumer Credit Counseling, we are a credit counseling agency. And so part of the reason we brought these experts on is because they really work with people and their budgets every day. So if you are someone you are really struggling with your budget and you're really struggling with your debt, please feel free to give our organization a call. You can call us at the community outreach line is 866-464-5241. If you want to know more about our organization, you can check us out at consumercredit.com. You might have the luck to get in contact with either Paul or Kyle to get some kind of advice from them, one-to-one assistance from them. But if you are interested in these webinars, if you like this webinar series, we have a couple more coming down the pipeline. So next month, we're actually taking this as a basis for the back to school, and we're really unpacking it for Happy Holidays, Happy Wallet, and it's planning for affordable festivities. So we're really looking at this, what we're doing now, but we're really going to help you kind of get through October, November, December, and the beginning of January. On our Thursday, our October webinar, what we're going to do is we're really going to unpack credit reports, credit scores, and credit cards, because we really want to have you unlock your financial power by really boosting your credit IQ. Our November webinar, what we're going to do, it's called Financial Harmony. And what we realize is that some people in life, they're kind of managing their own budget. They're helping their kids, as both Kyle and Paul had said, and as Chloe had given an example, like we're kind of helping manage our children's budget. But then there's the added layer of kind of aging parents. And there's a lot of people who really are beginning to help their parents begin to kind of assess some different things. So our November webinar really takes a look at helping people to, how do you manage kind of all three of these, yours, your child's, and maybe the assistance with your parents. So that's our November webinar. That's our kind of webinar coming up. But we thank you for your time, and we hope that you enjoyed this webinar. If you are interested, please check out our previous webinars because we have lots of information there as well.